Dear learners, welcome to this session. In this session, we will be discussing challenges in implementation of POSH Act. POSH is Prevention of Sexual Harassment. So this particular session is a part of the course on employability skills. And in this session, we would be discussing what are the challenges one faces or an organization faces while implementing the POSH Act. Because this has become very important aspect in all the organization where prevention of sexual harassment has to be implemented, and it has to be the grievances have to be redressed on time. In this session, we would be discussing different aspects of POSH because you'll be having another session on POSH Act. So I'll just give you a brief idea how the POSH Act has evolved, and then we are going to see what are the barriers or the gaps which we usually face while implementing the POSH Act, and what can be the probable solutions to overcome these gaps or these barriers. And then we will try to understand this concept through a case study where the POSH Act has not been implemented properly, and what will be the case situation if the POSH Act is implemented effectively. So all these aspects we are trying to cover in this session. And this session is very important as part of employability skills, because the way we behave with our peer group, with our seniors, with our juniors, with our counterparts is very important in a workplace. So when we talk about the employability skills, it is very important to understand how our behavior, our attitude, our mannerisms, they affect the work environment. And that is why it is very important to understand the POSH Act. Now let us understand how it has evolved. So when we talk about in a country like India, which is very diverse and where people come from different cultural backgrounds, where people have different viewpoints, where the diversion and the changes in rituals, in value system, in traditions is changing every 50 kilometers. So it becomes very important to understand the behavior. So when we talk about the evolution of laws which address the workplace sexual harassment, so you'll find that it all started in 1997 in a formal manner. So to formalize, Vishaka guidelines came up in 1997, which defined the employer responsibilities and developed certain kinds of standards for prevention and redressal. Then after that, in 2013, a act was enacted, a proper act was enacted, which was known as POSH Act, and it introduced the statutory obligations, the mandatory internal complaints committee, and the timelines for this committee to redress the grievances or redress the issues in the workplace. Then from 2013, if we see the timeline from 2013 to 2025, the adoption and awareness of this act has come. Now, this act is a mandatory requirement in all the organizations, whether it is private or government or semi-government organization. It is a mandatory requirement. So, adoption and awareness is still going on. So it is a mandatory ICCs for organizations with 10 or more employees, and it involves increased awareness and implementation mandate. Now, one thing I would like to make clear here is that this particular act is not only an act. This act defines certain norms, certain behaviors, certain attitudes which should be followed by each and every employee in an organization. And the mandatory requirement is that any organization which is having 10 or more people, this act should be implemented there. Now coming to the provisions of the POSH Act, because this brief idea is required when we go from the implementation of POSH Act to the challenges of implementing the POSH Act. When we talk about the provisions, it has employer obligations. The obligations are there on the employer. There is a scope for it. There are certain ICC procedures and employee protections. Now, in this case, it is not only employee protections, it is the protection of the visitors coming to the organization. It is the protection of the residents of the employees where the helps are working. So, it is the protection of the contractual employees, it is the protection of the house helps, it is the protection of the workers who are working in that organization. So in the first case, the employer duties provide safe workplace and resources. These are the provisions. It has a wide scope and the coverage, which includes who is a female, who is the person who is aggrieved, who is the complainant, who is the at the receiving end. So all these things are defined properly in this act. Then there is a part of ICC, Internal Complaints Committee, and the procedures for complaint handling, which involves certain timelines. Then of course the protection and rights remedies are already there. So all these things, they are covered in this particular aspect. Coming to the awareness part, in awareness and training gaps in implementation of POSH. Now this is very, very important, because when we talk about awareness, most of the places what happens is that people, they may not be talking badly intentionally, but in that case that also comes under harassment. So people are not even aware, even the high level officers, they are not even aware how to behave with their subordinates. So this is very, very important to understand, that awareness of these acts and the provisions given in these act is very, very important, and people or the employers, they should understand what is the importance of these awareness. When we talk of awareness, there is lack of training, there is poor relevance. People think it's nothing, it is not required, it's not mandatory. Why should we attend such kind of trainings? Why should we aware of such kind of rules and regulations? And the other important aspect is ineffective delivery. Now, if you're doing the awareness activities or the training activities, then it requires effective delivery. One should understand why this kind of training is required. So there are certain training gaps which has made the implementation of POSH quite challenging. So it is very, very important to understand what actually is a POSH. So lack of training and awareness is definitely there, because people, while even talking, they don't understand how to behave, how to talk. Because what happens is, an individual's grooming or individual's behavior or individual's way of presenting herself is different, or every individual is different, and the grooming comes from the childhood. So you don't know what exactly is going on in people's minds. So the way they talk may sometimes hurt the other party, and that may result in the sexual harassment or mental harassment. So these cases needs to be addressed, and that can be done through awareness campaigns or training, proper training campaigns. Now, we come to another aspect, which is the structural and resource barriers. There are so many barriers which are coming while implementing this particular act. For example, staffing. There are, in many organizations, you'll find there are limited senior female leadership. And the POSH Act categorically states that whosoever will be the head of the cash committee or the sexual harassment committee should be a female. So in that case, inexperienced females are there, female leadership is less. And then there are a less number of females who could chair the ICC. External member access is very, very limited, which is a mandatory requirement in certain cases. Because in small organizations, suppose the organization which has only 10 people, so in that case, this kind of issue comes up quite often. Now, another aspect is funding and time for investigations. There are so many aspects that investigation requires significant time, and the time mandate is 90 days for ICC forming. Since the complaint is lodged and since the complaint is redressed, that particular time for ICC is 90 days. So, in certain cases, 3 months of time is less. And in those times, if you have an external expert, you have to fund that external expert also. So in small organization, this kind of issues come up, the budgetary issues come up, and limited funds to hire external experts is there. So then the external expert is not hired, and in that case, the biases come during the investigations. So this is very important to understand. Then informal sector or access gaps. Their workers in the informal settings or unorganized sectors, they lack the awareness of the importance of ICC or the internal complaints committee. So, low awareness of resources, the support from the external groups, this is there in smaller organizations. In bigger organization, another kind of issues are there. In bigger organization, the challenge is not for funding, the challenge is time for investigations, because whosoever is heading the ICC and who's the experts who are a part of the committee, they need to come together at a particular point of time, and they have to cover the investigation in 90 days. And in 90 days may be a short period of time to investigate a very, very large organization, because there are so many people involved, there are so many nitty-gritties involved. So this requires lot of work. So in small organization, different kinds of challenges are there, and in bigger organization, different kinds of challenges are there. Now coming to the other barrier or a challenge can be the procedural and legal ambiguities in POSH implementation. There are procedural ambiguities. For example, if you have ambiguity between the impact versus intent. For example, somebody has lodged a complaint, and in that case, if you see in the prima facie, the complaint seems to be genuine. But when you try to investigate through the evidences, the complaint may not be genuine. So there is an ambiguity between the impact of that particular complaint and how the intent of that complainant is there. So which is quite unclear at times, and the evidences make a lot of difference, and for that the procedural ambiguities are there in the prima facie case. There are overlapping laws. In India, in a country like India, which has so broad labor laws, so if you have different kinds of labor laws in different places, then you have criminal root complications, which complicates the employer action. There are threatening resources also. So there are many technical issues, and there are overlapping laws which hinder the investigation process and which become a challenging part while framing the ICC. Then timelines, they are, as I said earlier also, the timelines are a major bottleneck, and 90-day period seems to be less in bigger organization, and for a smaller organization, the resources are less. The witnesses for the evidences may be less. So all these kind of issues, they strain the ICC, or they put a lot of stress on ICC, and that makes the procedural complications while investigating or while implementing the POSH. Then there are cultural and social barriers. As I said, India is a diverse nation which has many cultures, many traditions, many value system. So there are cultural and social barriers. Suppose somebody has gone through a certain kind of harassment. It may be sexual harassment, it may be mental harassment, whatever the case may be. In that case, the reporting to report a issue may be stigma. It may be an issue where the peers, the contemporaries, or the employees in the organization may start blaming the complainant. So it is victim blaming. Then, of course, there is a power dynamics also. Now, in the power dynamics, somebody who is senior and who has caused this mental harassment or sexual harassment may try to deter the complaints. They may try to hinder the complainant to lodge a complaint, or they may try to hinder the victim to lodge the complaint. So there is a play of power dynamics also. Then there is gossip and social penalties also. Now, if you file a complaint, then people start gossiping. Because we have, as human beings, we have a nature of doing the gossips. So informal rumors can force the victim not to file the complaint, and it may hinder her career, and it may harm the complainant, and the complainant may not be welcome in the social gatherings also. So it is a social penalty on that complainant or the victim. So these kind of barriers or challenges, they do arise while implementing the POSH Act. Coming to confidentiality and retaliation risks, this is very important, because when ICC is formed, then confidentiality has to be maintained. But there are cases where the members may try to discuss with others who are not the members of the ICC, and this may result in spreading of the complaint, and this may result in breaching the confidentiality of a particular complaint. So I have given 3 problems here, and the solutions to these 3 problems and how they can be overcome. Now, the first problem is confidentiality breaches exposes complainants and witnesses. That is very crucial in this case, because if there is a breach of confidentiality, the whole complaint and the witnesses may be compromised. So this is an issue. The solution to it is strict case access controls and documented interim relief timelines. There are certain measures which are given in the POSH Act, that if there is a complaint, the one who has caused this effect, or one who has who is the reason for the harassment, in that case, there is a provision of suspension, there is a provision of relief to the complainant within the timeline of the ICC. So these are certain things, but the confidentiality, it has to be maintained. It cannot be compromised. The other problem can be retaliation, which causes career impact and discourages reporting. The complainant, at the prima facie, at one go, the complainant may lodge a complaint, but due to career impact or threatening calls, the complainant may withdraw the complaint. So in that case, it becomes an issue and the reporting is not done. The solution to it is that certain kinds of anonymous reporting channels should be framed in to protect the witness and the complainant within the protocols of the committee. There is another problem, that is weak interim relief provisions which delay the protection. There are certain cases where the interim relief is not given immediately. In that case, the victim is not able to protect herself. So the protection, because protection in this case is very important, because POSH Act has come into formulation, or it has been enacted just to protect the rights of especially women in this case at the workplace. So the solution to this is that implementation of the access controls, timely interim relief, and protect the anonymous channels. So that is also important here. Now coming to the other aspect, which is the enforcement and external oversight gaps. And there are, you can say, the regulatory roles and the observed gaps. There's a long difference between the gaps and the regulatory roles. So this is very, very important that we understand this particular aspect, wherein regulatory roles, the suppose police is involved or district officer is involved, the because these are higher kind of complaints, labor inspectors are involved. So, but the observation is that those people can be compromised, and there is a limited monitoring and penalties which rely on internal compliance and the management action. There are multiple agendas officially which are responsible for the enforcement. There is not only one agenda, there can be multiple agendas which cause, because there are regulatory rules which can cause the oversight. And this may, when we talk about the observed gaps in this case, there are few standard audits or accreditation schemes which ICC needs to be verified and which may not be documented. So the regulatory roles and the observed gaps should be, there's a difference between the two, and therefore the regulatory roles become a barrier. And if we just miss out on some things, the judgment results in kind of a bias, and the judgment may not be proper. So this is very, very important. Now coming to a study, this is just a snapshot, and all the data has been gathered through the internet, through various sources. And if you just look at the global and the estimated incidents, reported incidents versus estimated incidents, you'll find there's a large gap between the estimated prevalence and formal reporting under the POSH Act. There are 33% of estimated prevalence, and global estimate says that 1 in 3 women experience workplace sexual harassment, but the reporting rate is only 30%. People, due to stigma, due to career advancement, loss in career advancement, loss in job, the women, they don't tend to report the cases. In 2013, the POSH Act has been enacted. Still, there is a difference between the two. Now, let us discuss a simple case study. We can assume that there is a workplace without POSH practices, and we can assume there is a workplace with POSH practices. Implementing POSH does not say that the workplace is having POSH practices. Here, without POSH practices, I mean basically is that the workplace is having the POSH Act in place, but the practices of the POSH are not being implemented. So, the workplaces without POSH practices have lack of POSH training. They have informal gossip or the grapevine, and the channels of gossip is dominating in those places. Female workers may be shamed for accepting rides from their counterparts while traveling or while going somewhere, and they may be forced to leave. There is a talent drain. The retention rate of the employees is very, very low. The talent drain is there. It is a reputational harm also there. There is no documentation of redressal actions. There is, you can say, there's lack of implementation in the practices, or lack of formulating the rules and regulations within the organizations to avoid sexual harassment. All these things can be overcome with immediate actions like implementing it, training it, making people aware about the POSH Act. The outcome can be we can restore the trust amongst the employees. We can increase the retention rate of the talents. We can reduce the legal and reputational risks. Coming to the other case is that case study which is after, which restores the trust through targeted POSH actions. This involves interventions and measurable workplace improvements. Now, if you can just visualize and if you can just imagine that if the POSH Act is implemented properly and it is in place, then the grievances or the complaints are quite less. There is POSH Act does not mean that it invites the complaints. The proper implementation of POSH Act says that the complaints should be so less that there are no ICCs and the monitoring is quite nice in that organization. So there are implemented contextual training which is tailored to the needs of the organization, launching the anonymous reporting as I said earlier also, reducing the gossip mechanism, the gossip chain, establishing ICC with an external experts to remove the biases. Complaints can be handled within 90 days and improved retention and restored trust. If we follow all these things, then the outcome is that it is faster resolution, higher retention and measurable cultural shift, because the culture of an organization is very, very important. If there is a good culture in the organization, the employees feel like working and the productivity also increases. If we talk about the operational bottlenecks, because I have given you 2 case studies and just see operational bottlenecks, the problem is the understaffed ICCs. Because in ICC, there is a mandate of specific number of people. But if the organization is small, those specific number of people won't be there. So this can be the 90 days trial period can be missed out or the timeline can be missed out, and extended workplaces slows down the evidence gathering. As I said that in a bigger organization, the evidence is less. The solution to this is define the procedure, set the norms as per the organizational needs, appoint a backup ICC members, engage external investigators for complex cases. For us, if we can have another solution to have a standardized forms. Like in IGNOU, we have a standardized forms for filing the complaints also, and there is a set procedure also. The impact is faster compliance within stipulated time period of 90 days. Now we come to the practical barriers. These are the key gaps of POSH investigations. There is a selection issue, informal appointments, scarcity of senior female members, frequent conflicts of interest is very, all these we have discussed, but conflict of interest is another important aspect which needs to be discussed and which is quite challenging while working with the ICC. It is not necessary, as I said, every individual has his or her own views. So when the ICC is formed and ICC members are sitting and they're trying to solve the case, then in that case, the conflict of interest comes into picture. If there is no majority, then the case becomes more complex. And this results because this particular challenge arises because of the training gaps. There is no procedure for interviews, there is uncertainty in evidence handling. All these things are a result of lack of awareness and lack of training. Weak investigation is another challenge which results in the improper resolution to a complaint. Missing the minutes of the committees, of the meetings of the committees, the absence of the witnesses who have not been interviewed, delayed reports, all this causes the crossing of the timeline, and this results in lack of, you could say, resolution in a particular time period. Other part is technology and record keeping challenges. As I said, documentation is very, very important in POSH implementation. If the documentation is not proper, as we discussed earlier, if the minutes are not proper, if the clauses mentioned are not proper, if the clauses are not followed properly as per the procedures of the organizational norms, the tracking is not there, the monitoring is not there, the timelines are missed, and inexperienced members are a part of the committee, then also the timelines are missed, and this becomes a major challenge in implementing the POSH Act. Now, when we talk about the challenges, we need to understand the solutions also. Can we have certain kind of solutions or probable solutions to overcome these challenges? So, the basic important thing is to design a training module. And the training module will have the core components, how those components can be delivered, and can the assessment on those components be done. So in core components, we can talk about scenario-based learnings. Through examples, we can teach people. We can have role plays. One can be the complainant, one can be the uh, respondent, and how they interact, what can be the ideas. Then we can have intervention modules to enable the peers to assess the situation, and we can have constant consent modules also, like we can have standard form for the consent also. If the complainant wants to withdraw the complaint, what kind of module should be there. So all these aspects needs to be covered. Other aspects also can evolve in the organization as per their needs. The other thing is the delivery. There you can have induction sessions for new employees. You have quarterly awareness sessions which can be frequently floated to the employees of the organization, so they are aware that this particular act is in place. The policy updates are to be there, and they can have the live sessions of the experts from this field who can deliver certain lectures and make people aware. Then the assessment is there, short quizzes related to these, um, the act can be there. There can be attitudinal surveys also, because these are psychological impacts. So we can hire people from those psychological background, and we can have attitudinal surveys. We can have applications for task change. We can measure the outcomes of these particular aspects. So this is all about designing the training module, and these are the key POSH indicators which needs to be kept in places where trainings delivered, how many trainings are delivered, number and year, how many cases are filed, the count has to be kept, what is the resolution time, the count has to be kept, and what will be the awareness score, the count has to be kept. So these are the key challenges and way forward. We just summarize all these, the top challenges: lack of awareness, that is the major challenge; limited resources, procedural ambiguity, cultural stigma, and confidentiality risks. The evidence highlights 1 in 3 women, as I said earlier, experience harassment. 70% of the incidents go unreported. The trust is the major aspect which needs to be built in the organization, because that is one of the major key blocker. Then proposed actions can be regulatory training, simple reporting, external ICC support, and strict confidentiality and monitoring. So these are the different aspects different challenges which are there in the implementation of the POS. But the basic idea here is that people need to behave, the employees need to behave in a proper manner, in a regulated manner, in a balanced manner, so that these kind of incidences, they do not come up. Thank you so much.